Hey everyone, Rogold here. You're going to come along with me today as I play through the zoo for the daily projects, but I wanted to have a chat about Project Resolve. You know, now that we're approaching the end of the Vanguard season, that was the big thing that came alongside this update, was Project Resolve, and it did a lot for the game. People have their different thoughts and opinions on whether or not that stuff was worthwhile, worthy of the delays of the DLC, all that different stuff. But now that we've seen just about everything that this update and Project Resolve itself has to offer, I've come to a bit of a realization, and that's that I think there is one thing in particular that really, I guess it shouldn't surprise me, because on paper this stuff sounded good, but the actual impact it's had on how I play the game has been really astounding, and that is the reworks and changes that were made to global events. Obviously, Reanimated is running right now for the second time this season. That's what I've got on as I play through this mission. But something that's been really cool to see for me personally is just how much more invested myself and players in general seem to be with global events in this game, when previously really the only one that people universally seemed to care about was Golden Bullet. But now, pretty much all 6 of them, I still have my own gripes with one that I'll talk about shortly, but anytime that a global event has been on this season, people have been excited, they've been trying new builds, they've been grinding it out, and I think that's a really healthy and beneficial thing for the game. For a quick recap, if you don't remember what they did, they basically, when Project Resolve was unveiled, they said they're going to be buffing 5 out of the 6 global events, basically all of them except Golden Bullet, to try and make the rest of them as enticing and make you as powerful as you feel when you do play Golden Bullet. And I think back to events like Hollywood and SHD Exposed before this update, I really did not care for those two in the least. In fact, I rarely ever play them because I just did not enjoy them, didn't think they were fun, but those ended up being some of the ones I had the most fun with, post Project Resolve and in this season. Now, I did say that there was one that I still don't care for a ton, and that's actually Polarity Switch. I tried the changes they made to it when it came around. Still don't think it's quite for me. I don't love the idea that, you have to be super mindful which targets you're shooting and all that stuff, which I know is the case for others. It just didn't click with me as much as the others. But now 5 out of the 6 global events I love, right? Of course, I always like Golden Bullet, and now the other 4, I always like Guardians 2 and Reanimated, but they're even better now, and now that we have SHD Exposed and Hollywood being as fun as they were, I think it's just a really awesome and, like I said, beneficial thing for the game that we have these modifiers and events that rotate throughout the seasons that players actually want to engage with, that they want to try new builds and play differently. That's really beneficial. Got to see the squid, octopus thing. I don't know what it is, but there it is. Now, if you were to ask me if I could only keep one thing from Project Resolve in the game, I would probably retain the PvP changes and the conflict stuff that was done, just because that is like, my favorite kind of stuff to play in the game. But I still think that overall, one of the biggest wins, undoubtedly, has to be the changes to global events, simply because of how much more interest it's given players in the game in these kind of downtimes when there's not major content releasing. And what I'm really hoping for is that things like the global event changes and the project's revamp that they did, obviously I'm running this mission right now randomly just because it's the project and I get good rewards from it. I really hope that things like that will stack on top of, the kind of updates we're getting in Year 6 with the endgame revamp and all that, and the season's restructuring, to just make the game, again, that much more engageable, is that a word? And, as good as they can make the game on a day-to-day experience, regardless of what events are running and all that stuff, is going to be beneficial for the game and the community as a whole. So that's what I hope all of this stuff is culminating towards as we move towards Year 6. I do think there is some interesting debate and discussion to be had about Project Resolve in hindsight. Was it worth the delays to everything? Did it change the game that much that it was, like I said, worth delaying that stuff by up to a year, in the case of the DLC? Some things in hindsight, I think they should have marketed a bit differently. I don't think they should have, or they should have better communicated that the kinds of things that it was targeting. Oh, rogue agents. See if I can one-shot one of them. Basically, what I'm saying is they made Project Resolve sound like it was going to be this thing that completely freed up the game in terms of the technical constraints and the bugs that it had. I think if you have any kind of a realistic lens at these things, you knew that that wasn't really going to be the case. And I think the majority of the health updates they did were behind the scenes that were necessary in order to prepare the game for the more major reworks and changes that we're going to be seeing in Year 6. But to the average player and to somebody who doesn't really have any concept of game design, they don't understand that stuff. And very understandably, I've seen people say, Project Resolve really wasn't worth the time and resources that it took. And again, I don't think that's necessarily an unfair thing to say. Oh, I missed the headshot. No! At the end of the day, live games like this and games overall are always going to have bugs. That is a reality of game development that no developer can escape. especially, live and evolving games like this is. But I do think you can very clearly point to the fact that ever since Project Resolve went live, one area that I think has definitely seen improvement is the deployment time and the deployment stability of these new updates. There hasn't been one of those maintenances that goes on for 6, 7, 8 hours like we would see before Project Resolve went live. In fact, I think it was more recently with TU 20.3, maybe 0.2, the maintenance ended early. They said it was estimated 3 hours and it was done in like an hour and a half, or maybe a little under 2 hours. So fingers crossed that we don't continue to see that happen in the future. But I think that's one example where you can say, yeah, that has on paper improve the performance and experience of the game. And like I said, for the most part, I would assume that the efforts that they made there were really behind the scenes things that they thought needed to be done in order to reliably get the game to where they wanted to be at when they deploy these big revamps and updates in year 6. But that was a bit of a tangent. I thought some people would want to hear about that stuff. But like I said, the main purpose of this video is that in hindsight, I really do think that one of the biggest wins of Project Resolve has been these global event reworks and changes that they've made. I think on paper, they just make the events way more fun, way more interactable, but it also just creates a healthier environment for the game where there are things to look forward to throughout the season. Even if we've played these events, many times before, it was the same in the Division 1. There were only 6 total global events in there, but people still enjoyed it every time they came around because they were just fun to interact with. And at least from my perspective, you're now seeing a kind of similar thought process when these events come around in the Division 2. Again, I still don't love Polarity Switch, but that's okay. I'm fine with not loving 1 out of 6. But the other 5, I really enjoy. I've seen similar reactions to people around the community, so I would assume that that's the general sentiment. RIP. But I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on this entire discussion. Whatever your reactions have been to the global event changes and all that stuff that went in with Project Resolve, let me know. Do you have a similar thought process to me where you've really enjoyed some of the changes they made? Do you think it is one of the more beneficial things they did this update, or do you have a different viewpoint on it? As always, I make these kinds of videos because I am genuinely curious to hear people's thoughts on the matter. So whatever your thoughts are on the global event stuff and Project Resolve in general, let me know down below. And as I've said in my past many videos, we're now kind of in the final stretch here, waiting to hear more about Year 6. Please don't kill me. Okay, just the shield. I can take that. So yeah, very excited to see what's coming up. It's been an interesting year with Year 5, obviously a bit different than they scoped it out when the year began, but hopefully by the time all of these changes and plans go into effect, the game will be in a much better place for it. So I'm excited when we get there, but that's all I've got for today, everybody. Thank you all very much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Rogue Gold. Out.